with a Business is brought to you by Audible.com.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Married with a Business. I'm Craig.
And I'm Allison.
And we're married with a business. We're here to share tips, tricks, stories of what it's like to be a married couple that own and operate a business together, have a desk, or, well, we used to have a desk close to each other, but now we're on separate floors, but we see each other every day. We are always working together.
Yes, but that doesn't mean we always talk to each other.
No, that's true. It's interesting because sometimes there are days where it's like you're in your office, I'm in my office, and we may walk into the building around the same time, even though you usually beat me there, and we may not talk to each other the whole day. So,
yes.
What's going on with you this week, Allison?
So we just dropped our boys off for summer camp. They are both going to a couple states away to go to scout camp, and they have a bunch of kids all from their troop going together. I think there's 17 kids, and 3 adults are headed down to a resident camp in Connecticut, and we dropped them off today, and it's really exciting. It's our oldest second time and our youngest first time.
Yeah, I was going to say, last year our oldest went and our youngest stayed with us the whole week.
Yep.
This year they're both gone, so we are home without kids this week.
Yes, which means we get to work more and still coach baseball.
Yeah, that is true.
Without our own kid.
I still have to coach 2 baseball games without my kid there. That is correct. But it'll be an interesting week for you and I because this kind of, in my head, the way I'm picturing this week is it kind of like harkens back to the days of yore when we didn't have kids and we used to go to work and work until like 6. I'm anxious to see like what our work days are going to be like because you usually leave work if you have to go pick the kids up or from school or whatever. You're usually out of the office by like 2:30. I usually stay till like 4 or 4:30, but like back before we had kids, we'd stay at the office until 5 or 6 o'clock.
Or then come home and work.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe we should be intentional about our schedule and not let we should run our schedule and not let our schedule run us while they're not here and be able to take a little bit of a break. But I'm really excited that they're both going. I grew up going to summer camp and working at summer camp, resident camps. You did not.
Nope.
But I am a huge proponent of sending kids to camp. We've got a couple of parents who are very nervous, and I keep reminding them that this is a good experience for 12, 13-year-old kids to be on their own, to learn skills and not have somebody picking up the pieces behind them.
Well, and I'll say this, like as a kid, like even when I was 12 and 13 years old, like my mother, I love her, my mother did like everything for me. She made my bed. She did my laundry. Of course she made dinners, but like she did everything for me.
12 or 13, you were in your 20s and she was still doing that.
That is somewhat true. I think it's good. We don't do that with our kids. You more than me, but you are definitely like, they have to do their own laundry, they do a lot. Our kids are very independent.
It's my job as a mom to teach them how to be responsible adult. And so I will support them, but if they are capable, I'm not their slave and I shouldn't have to do it.
No, and I think that this week will be, and to be honest with you, more for our youngest than our oldest. Like our oldest is, he can be a little bit more independent and he does things without complaining. Our youngest, on the other hand, he's a little more rough around the edges when it comes to like chores and getting things done. He is a wait to the last minute kind of person, i.e. like dad. And our oldest is more like you where he's like, let's just get it done so I can go and do the fun thing. But there are a lot of kids, and like we know a lot of these kids obviously that are going, and we help with the scout troop and we coach some of them in baseball, and it'll be good for a lot of them.
This is going to be really good for a lot of them. And as I said to some of the parents at drop off, after the first day, they will figure out what they need to do to take care of themselves. It's our job when they come back not to ruin them again.
Right. Not to ruin them again. To build on those things that they learn, to, pick up after themselves. And, I think it'll be great. I'm excited. I think this will be a really good experience. I'm really excited to see what the boys are like when they get back a week from now.
I think it's going to be harder for some of the parents than it is for the kids. So, and luckily for them, they're going with 15 other kids that they know and a couple of adults they know. So hopefully that will help combat some of that homesickness because they're there to help each other and to support each other.
And I think the biggest thing out of the whole thing is that they're there for a week with no tech. They're at a camp for a week. No cell phones, no Switches or Nintendos or whatever.
And they're going to have a fabulous time.
Yeah.
They don't need that.
They don't need that. We didn't have that. When I was a kid, we didn't have that stuff. We played outside.
Anyway.
What
have we been up to? What's something exciting that, besides sending the kids off to camp, that we've been up to?
I mean, that's pretty exciting. But we were also invited this past week to speak at a conference in Baltimore for ProRemodeler magazine.
Yeah, we went to their Pinnacle Experience, which is a leadership, sales, technology, and lead generation event for professionals in the remodeling and home improvement industry. So the Pinnacle Experience is aimed to provide remodelers with tools and knowledge that they need to grow their business and thrive in our industry.
Yeah, and so I guess first we'll start off of talking a little bit about like how did we get selected for the conference, which, to be honest with you, is because of this podcast.
Yay, so thank you all.
Yeah, so we were actually on an episode of Remodeler Stories with Spencer Powell from Builder Funnel back in 2023. That's an industry-specific podcast that talks, just basically Spencer spent an hour with us just talking about us and our business and how we got into it and some best practices. And we talked about this podcast on that podcast. And then they heard the editors of ProRemodeler magazine kind of heard our podcast, listened to us, heard what we talk about here about being a couple and about, the leadership stuff and all the business practices. And so they asked us to come and be sort of on the dais there for their show.
Yeah, Caroline, one of the editors, reached out to us, and it was almost like one of those emails that you don't pay attention to. And then I went back and reread it, and I said, oh, this might be interesting. So we did a Zoom call with her, and we chatted about who we are and what we do in our remodeling business and on this podcast. And she said, hey, I've got a couple opportunities if you guys would be interested. And so we're trying very hard to say yes to the right things and figured this would be something good to jump on. We didn't know a lot about the program at the time, but we figured it would be worthwhile. And Craig will never say no to a trip to Baltimore.
Well, that's true. I am a lifelong Baltimore Orioles fan. If you know anything about me, I love baseball and I love the Baltimore Orioles. So we got to go down a day early and catch an Orioles game. But I will also not say no to an opportunity that is going to help us, reach more people and talk to more people about our story and help them, if it's just to have somebody to commiserate with and say, hey, I live that too. That was probably for me, we got, and we'll get a little bit more into this. We got to talk and meet a lot of people, and we got to meet people that were way bigger and do much bigger things than us in the industry. But one of my favorite things is we got to meet Matt from Wisconsin, who runs like the mirror image of Matt and Rosie have like the mirror image of our company.
In a lot of ways
in Wisconsin. And we had the same, we were at one of the socials the first night and we got to talking to each other, and we have a lot of the same struggles. And I think that's one good thing about going to an industry specific conference like this is you meet people like that where we have the same problems. We're trying to figure out the same things in our business that they were figuring out. And we were able to talk about, oh, here's what I'm doing. And Matt was like, here's what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, I should try that. And he's like, oh, I should try that.
Yeah, it was really helpful being able to connect with people of similar size, even though they're not in the same geographical area, that what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you, and share those best practices. So in the past, I don't think we've been as willing to go to some of the social aspects of it. And I think part of that is because when we came into the business in our 20s, the 40s and 50-year-olds didn't really want to talk to us. Right. And now we're old. We're on the same level as a lot of them. Yeah, even though we've been running our business and our business has been around a lot longer than them, we are now contemporaries and peers more than they thought we were when we were in our 20s.
Well, and I think that, and especially I feel like our industry, so I feel like the home improvement, design, build, remodeling industry, as companies, we're way more apt to share information and to share with each other, I think, than some other industries. I mean, it's so geographic that like somebody in Wisconsin's not worried about me taking any share of his business or whatever it might be. So, it's really good to have that ability to talk to people like that. And like we talked about it in 2 episodes ago, we talked about a mastermind. In a lot of ways, this is the same kind of thing. Like, in that room with all those design build remodelers that we were talking to was the perfect company, and for us to be able to share ideas together and talk to each other is extremely helpful for us to help better our businesses.
And I was asked to run a roundtable discussion group on leadership for the design build companies, and we had people in my group that was one person. We had people that were running a $2 million company, and across the table I had somebody who was running a $20 million design build firm, and another guy who had 130 employees for his design build firm. So we had a lot of different perspectives on leadership, how to grow leaders, and different struggles at the various levels of how big your company is. So it was wonderful to share the things that are working, the things that aren't working, and as you grow, because as you grow, you face different challenges. Somebody with 4 employees is definitely facing a different leadership challenge than somebody with 130 employees.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, what was really interesting about the conference to begin with is it's ProRemodeler, which is a magazine for, any kind of remodel to your house. Like I'll just give it like a big overarching, like everything from window and door replacements down to building additions, down to finish, anything you can think about for the house. That's what the focus of it was. And so not only did you have design build firms like us, which are, tend to do, more custom based projects, I guess, for people. You also had these big, giant corporate home improvement companies that do windows only or roofing only. And they're like $150 million companies and $170 million companies. And so it was really interesting for us to just kind of be around all of those different people and see the differences about, from talking about sales to operations, just to how different these companies are.
Yeah, because when you're running a huge replacement company, your tactics and your budget are going to be different than, as we decided we would call it, a boutique design build company where you're doing general remodeling. Whereas design build companies spend 1% to 2% on marketing. These other home improvement companies are spending 15% on marketing. And so I went to, not understanding what the two different tracks were to start with, I went to the home improvement track to start with, and I was like, oh, this is a whole different world. So it was really interesting to get a different perspective as we were sitting at breakfast and lunch talking with these people.
Yeah, and it was really interesting. I will say one of the crazy things to me to kind of come out of this whole week with them was the amount of conversation around artificial intelligence. It was sort of like the subtopic for the whole conference.
And it was really interesting. So I went to one of the breakout roundtables that I wasn't leading about AI, and they went around and they were asking why people picked this one, and people were talking very specifically about AI. And they got to me and I said, I don't understand what any of you people are saying, and that's why I'm sitting here. But it was good because I did get a lot of clarity, and I got a lot of tips on how to make it more useful for the things I'm already using it for and some things to utilize it for. They talked a lot about thinking about it as assistance and insight. Assistance, how to take everyday tasks and help me do them faster, and insight, how to identify new opportunities.
Yeah, and for me, it's like I know enough. It's one of those things that I think I know enough to be dangerous with, right?
Like a lot of things.
Like a lot of things, I know enough to be dangerous. But I'm familiar with Chat GPT and Bard and all of those ones that you type something in and you ask it to write you a blog, and it rates you a blog. And those are all things that I think are valuable. And one of the other topics of conversation that we had, which is like at some point the pendulum's swinging so hard to the AI generated content now with things that people are going to want more real content. So it's going to swing back the other way even harder. So it was just really interesting, and like to hear some of the things that are coming with AI and in our industry specific and just in general is just kind of crazy to think about.
And, how do you utilize it while still staying authentic and real, but using things like note takers or editors to make you more efficient in what you're doing?
So, yeah. So it's so new, I guess. It's one of those things that finally, like, for years I've been like, we've been teaching our parents how to write emails or how to text message, and now it's like, I need one of my kids to teach me how to use AI.
I felt so old. We were sitting at a table with some 20-year-olds who do marketing for these big companies, and they do like social media. And I was like, what are you talking about? But it was really helpful. And I think that is one of the valuable things about going to conferences and trying to stay relevant, is because even though for our industry, it's a very like, you build how you build, there's all these other moving parts that can make you better and make you more efficient. And I'm always telling my team, life is so hard. What can we do to make our process smoother and easier so it's not as difficult? And, we have been struggling with some things that we haven't been able to get clarity on in terms of how do we make Almar, our business, run more efficiently and smoother. And it's been in the back of my head for like a year and a half. And I think having some of those conversations and being open about it, I got a lot of clarity on some of the things that we are struggling with. Specifically, how do we not necessarily replace you, but help you take the hat of sales and estimating off a little bit more?
Yeah, and it's crazy that all of this stuff is gonna, I will say that being away and focusing something more industry specific did help us, I think, gain some of that clarity. But let's talk a few minutes about our specific reason why we were asked to go there. So you and I were asked to lead roundtables. So this conference is actually very interesting. Unlike most conferences where you go to and you sit in a classroom or you sit in breakout sessions and it's you and 100 people listening to one person speak, or and obviously there's the people who speak to the whole group, the keynotes. This one runs a little bit different. They have all that. They have keynote speakers.
Yeah, there's some great keynote speakers.
And they have breakout sessions that were 50, 60 people in a breakout session doing, but they also have these little sort of roundtable groups where they were trying to limit it to about 10 or 15 at most people in a room, where it was everybody was there to speak and share and talk. And I really liked the fact that they did that. So you led one about leadership and I led one about lead generation.
Right. So, in what they told us is our job as facilitators is to come prepped with some primer questions and to try and get everybody to speak and share. And I said leadership was really hard because there's so many areas. So I started with, why did you pick this? And there were like 5 or 6 different main topics. And I was like, oh no, we only have 45 minutes. But we tried to touch a little bit on everybody's thing. And then we had a couple people who had some real specific things that they needed people to speak into, and they needed mentors to talk to them and help them through. So we tried to give them time. It was hard because I didn't want to have one company's questions usurp the whole thing. So that was a challenge, but also really great to be able to say, okay, we're going to talk for 5 more minutes. Well, we're here for you for the rest of the conference if you want to talk more about this.
Yeah, and the same was true with mine. It was a group of people that we were talking about how we get leads and the best way to get new leads in. And obviously in our industry, repeat referrals sort of the biggest way to get, leads in. But it was interesting to talk. There's some areas of the country where people are still advertising in newspapers, and there's areas of the country where they are doing nothing but social media. And so it was really interesting to sort of, go with some of the companies that were in the room and talk to them about, everybody was sharing what they do, what their best practices are. And it was really good because I think we came out with that's not a bad idea. We should try that, or we need to be better at doing this.
And it was great to have the opportunity for people who were struggling in certain areas to ask for help, and to have 10, 15 other companies give them feedback and suggestions on how to try, just like a mini mastermind just for that one day.
Yeah, I think that ProRemodeler and the group that put it together did a really good job with, I think every day, day one, there was no breakout or no mastermind sessions, but day 2, I think I was in 2. You led yours on day 2. Mine was on day 3. So you had 3 opportunities at minimum to sit in a group like that and share and talk about it, in a small group setting.
It was almost a shame that we didn't have more opportunity because there were other ones I would have sat in, and I had somebody say, I really wanted to come to yours, but I went to this one. So it was really nice to be able to chat with people in the halls. And again, when you go to a conference and you're open and you're willing to talk to people, we're just like networking. We're all there for the same reason. We all came to pour into our business and get new ideas and new feedback. So it was great. One of the workshops, the keynote speakers that we sat in on, was talking about goals. And what did Michael talk? What did you get from Michael's talk about BHAGs, and what's a BHAG?
Yeah, so a BHAG, if you've never heard of it, so you've heard of big goals and you've heard big audacious goals, bags. BHAG is a big hairy audacious goal. That's like the top one. That's the one of I don't know if I could actually do this, but it would be amazing if I could do it.
We're going to go to Mars by 2025.
Yeah, right. It's exactly what it is. And so, I think that you and I, and we've always said this, and I'm sure we've said this on the podcast before, like you never achieve anything you don't set a goal for. You just don't. You have to set a goal, and it has to be, we're big proponents of it needs to be measurable. There needs to be metrics that you can put to it so that you're working towards this goal. And I think that, this was one good place where like you and I set goals, but we don't necessarily always set stretch goals.
I think we have been cruising. We've gotten to a place where things are okay. We've got some systems that are working. We've got some great people in their seats, but we haven't pushed ourselves. We have some I think we've had ideas about where we want to go, but we haven't really done anything to make that happen. And I think coming back from this conference, we were able to succinctly identify what our BHAG is and what next steps we have to take to achieve those goals. And I feel like this is the first time in a while we've really been, one, in sync, and two, energized about making some changes so that we can get to our end goal, which we have already identified, but haven't really been working extra hard to get to in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think I think it added a lot of clarity to our goals. Like it added a lot of clarity to what we need to do to achieve our goals. Do you think that, we should have been better about going to industry specific things over the past couple of years where we haven't been?
Yeah, I think we keep talking about it and we just never pull the trigger because the kids have this. We don't have anybody to watch them. We're busy with school.
Baseball.
We're busy with baseball. Like, I think we've made a lot of excuses. We don't want to spend the money. Mm-hmm. I think we've made a lot of excuses to put things off instead of, and I think if we hadn't, maybe we would be 2 steps ahead or a step and a half ahead and have been filling in those revenue gaps to have covered those things. I think that we made a lot of excuses for ourselves.
No,
let's just be honest.
Absolutely. I think that it's funny, this is very raw. You and I haven't talked about this, but I think that like, I look back at it and go, well, if 5 or 6 years ago, maybe pre-COVID, you and I had dug our heels in, and granted, our kids at that time were 5 and 6 and 7 years old, and life was different. But like, I think if we had dug our heels in pre-COVID, that coming out in this boom, it would have given us a bigger opportunity to grow. And so now, not that I don't think the ability to grow is there, it's definitely going to be more work. But I think we reach this point where our kids are at a certain age, and we're at a certain mindset, and so now it's I feel like I came back from this conference ready to put my shoulder into it a little bit.
But you also have to remember, we make the best decisions we can at the time with the information we have.
Yeah, no. And I think for us, what's next is obviously for us to, take everything that we came back, all this energy that we got from being at that conference, and then set out our plan and build our BHAG and build our goals and put it up there on the board and say, hey, here's what we have to do to get there. And that's something that you and I are working on next week. We've already got a date set to do that, which is good.
What gets scheduled gets done. And I think that we've had our vision traction organizer through the traction EOS system, and it's the 3 and 5 year portion of it has been vague, but I think now it's very specific, and we can share that very specific with our team, and we have very specific action items that I think we want to address. And so I think that will give them more clarity as well, so that we're all, again, moving together in the same direction. Because I think we've got a year goal, we've got 30-day, 90-day rocks that are kind of getting done, kind of not getting done. But I think by having a very clear, specific focus, we want to be at this volume in this many years with these people. It will give us better clarity.
Yeah, I think by being in the room with some of those companies that we aspire to be, it really did shine a light on our complacency over the past couple of years.
And it's helped us give us a way to move forward that we could not figure out ourselves. We know we need to do this. We hadn't been able to figure out what the next step is. And some of them who are a couple of steps ahead of us were able to say, this is what you should do. This is the next steps you should take, and to get us over that hump of recreating the wheel by ourselves.
Yeah. I will say there's another awesome thing that came out of this conference, and that is you got invited to speak at the Women in Residential and Commercial Construction Conference in September in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes, it's very scary, especially having been at this conference and seeing how wonderful the speakers were. There's a lot of pressure to succeed. But yeah, so I'm gonna be one of the featured speakers at this women's conference, and what it is, it's about 300 women in construction for 3 days, I think, of education packed around, different speakers. We'll have AIA sessions. We'll have breakout sessions. We'll have roundtables again, which I think is great. We'll have some panels. There'll be more networking. And we're really going to be able to surround ourselves with some of the top female leaders in construction, which I think is great because I think that we're still underserved, and we're going to be able to bring valuable approaches and insights and takeaways for the business. So I'm really excited to have a follow-up to what we just did. And again, that we're going to be able to build our own experiences and our own tracks, whether you're commercial or you're residential. And I think it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, check it out. If you get a chance, go to womensconstructionconference.com. That'll come up, and you'll see the 2024 conference there. You'll see Allison and a lot of other great speakers. You know what I'm most excited about it is?
That you can go but not have to participate?
Yeah, I'm going as arm candy. Like, I'll come to the little cocktail things and say hi to people I know, but maybe play golf during the day. I don't know. It could be fun for me. It
will be fun, but you are going to have so much stuff being thrown at you because I'm going to come back and be like, "Ooh, can you look at this? Ooh, can you talk about this? Ooh, we should." So it'll be fun.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for us on that. So definitely check that out. womensconstructionconference.com if you're interested in going. Hey, what are we listening to this week, Allison? I got a good book. Marcus Sheridan.
Who we got to meet. I'm so excited.
Yeah, Marcus Sheridan. They Ask, You Answer. If you've never checked it out, check it out. You can find it on Audible. Just go to audibletrial.com/bizmarried and get a free 30 days of Audible on us. But Marcus was there. He spoke. He's great. He has so much energy. We got to hang out with him for a few minutes after his speech. He's a great marketing mind.
Yeah, so the book is all about a guide for business that explains how to create content by answering the questions our customers are asking. The book emphasizes the importance of transparency and building trust with our customers through content. And I read it a couple of years ago. I know we've talked about it. That's how I started building blogs and our FAQs on our website. And how do we pre-answer the questions that our customers have before they have to ask us them? It makes them trust us. It makes them know that we understand them, and it makes our lives easier because they're not always asking the same questions. And I have to tell you that since I've been doing it, it drives me nuts when I'm dealing with organizations that don't pre-answer these questions. They have to be getting the same questions all the time. Why can't they just give us the information before having to ask them, right?
Yeah.
So if you haven't checked it out, please check it out. Start to add FAQs to your website. Answer your customers' questions before they ask them, because they're going to trust you more, and it's going to be an easier process for you to get them on board with you.
Yeah, They Ask, You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. I've seen him speak a couple of times. Every time he talks, I get something new out of it. I come back to you. I'm like, oh, we got to do this. I got to write this blog. I got to make this content. So check it out on audibletrial.com/bizmarried. Get a free 30 days of Audible on us if you sign up then. Hey, listen, everybody, thanks for listening. Don't forget, check out our website too, marriedwithabusiness.net. If you have something you want to share with us, talk to us, you can fill out a form on there and, just reach out to us. Our email's on there. But definitely check that out, marriedwithabusiness.net. Also, find us on social media. You can find us on Instagram @BizMarried, or just search for us on Facebook, Married with a Business. We're also on TikTok, but we haven't posted anything yet, so maybe we should start doing that, apparently. Apparently, a lot of people are using the TikToks, so that was one of the things that came out of this week is you should be posting on the TikToks. So
someone can volunteer to help us with that.
Yeah, find us on social media, though. We're on most of them @BizMarried. Hey, listen, thanks for listening, everybody. Remember to find us online, like and share, and subscribe. And remember, not only is it important to focus on your business, but also your marriage, because we're married with a business.